The underpass on 34th Street was a concrete cathedral of forgotten space. For years, its grimy walls had been a canvas for hasty tags and gang insignia, a place people hurried through with their keys clutched in their fists. But for the past week, it had been undergoing a transformation. Jamal, a 17-year-old with thoughtful eyes and hands that seemed to move with a quiet, practiced grace, was turning the drab concrete into a vibrant mural of community heroes. It was a city-sanctioned project, a scholarship competition he had won, designed to bring life and art back to neglected public spaces. Today, he was working on the centerpiece, a portrait of Ms. Rosa May, a beloved local librarian who had taught 3 generations of kids in the neighborhood to read. He worked with a focused intensity, his spray cans a blur of controlled motion, each hiss of paint a brushstroke. The scent of aerosol paint mingled with the damp, earthy smell of the underpass. He wore a respirator mask, old paint-splattered jeans, and a hoodie with the sleeves pushed up to his elbows, revealing forearms smudged with a rainbow of colors. He was in his element, lost in the act of creation. The sudden, harsh scrape of tires on asphalt just outside the underpass jerked him from his trance. A police cruiser had parked haphazardly, blocking one lane of traffic. The officer who stepped out moved with the heavy, deliberate gait of a man who enjoyed his own authority. This was Officer Kurt Slade, a burly white policeman with a shaved head and a reputation in the precinct for being a hard charger, a euphemism for a bully who skirted the edge of brutality. Slade saw exactly what he expected to see, a young black kid with a bag full of spray cans, covering a public wall with graffiti. He didn't see the printed city permit taped neatly to a nearby pillar. He didn't see the artistic skill or the noble subject of the mural. He saw a punk, a vandal, a problem to be solved with intimidation. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" Slade's voice boomed, echoing off the concrete walls. Jamal pulled down his respirator. "Good afternoon, officer. I'm working on the community mural project." Slade sauntered into the underpass, his eyes scanning the colorful wall with undisguised contempt. "Mural project? Looks like vandalism to me. This whole wall is a mess." "It's a work in progress, sir," Jamal said politely, gesturing towards the finished portraits. "The city approved the designs. My permit is right over there." Slade glanced at the permit, then back at Jamal, a smirk twisting his lips. "Oh, a permit. Anyone can print a piece of paper. You kids get more clever every year. Let me see some ID." Jamal calmly produced his student ID from his wallet. Slade barely looked at it. His focus was on the confrontation. He enjoyed this part of the job, the fear he could inspire, the way people shrank under his gaze. But this kid wasn't shrinking. He was composed, respectful but not scared. It irritated Slade. "So, you're an artist, huh?" Slade said, stepping closer and tapping a finished section of the mural with his baton. "Waste of paint, if you ask me. This neighborhood needs more cops, not more of this clutter." "Art can inspire people, officer," Jamal said quietly. "And it can also be a gateway," Slade countered. "Starts with this, then it's breaking and entering, then worse. I know your type." He got right in Jamal's face. "I think this permit is fake. I think you're just another tagger defacing public property. And I think you're going to pack up your little art project right now and come with me." "Officer, I assure you, everything is legitimate," Jamal insisted, holding his ground. "You can call the number on the permit. It goes directly to the City Arts Council." "I'm not calling anyone," Slade snarled, his patience gone. "I'm the law on this street, and I say you're done." He shoved Jamal hard against the wall. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and a spray can clattered to the ground. "There's no need for this," Jamal gasped, pushing himself off the concrete. "You're right," Slade said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. The street above was noisy with traffic, and the underpass shielded them from direct view. They were effectively alone. There isn't. What happened next was fast, brutal, and calculated. Slade wasn't just using his fists. His black leather gloves were not standard issue. They were reinforced over the knuckles with a dense polymer composite, a modern, stealthy version of brass knuckles known as sap gloves. They were illegal for police use in any capacity, a tool for street thugs, not law enforcement. He drove his right fist into Jamal's stomach. Jamal doubled over with a choked cry. Before he could recover, Slade grabbed him by the hoodie and slammed him against the wall again. As Jamal raised his arm to defend himself, Slade swung again, aiming for his hand. There was a sickening, sharp crack. Pain, white-hot and absolute, exploded in Jamal's right wrist. It was the hand he drew with, the hand he painted with. He screamed, a sound of pure agony that was swallowed by the roar of a passing truck overhead. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his wrist, vision swimming with black spots. Slade stood over him, breathing heavily, a grim satisfaction on his face. He looked at Jamal's hand, bent at an unnatural angle. "Shouldn't have resisted," he said, the lie coming easily. He nudged Jamal's bag of expensive spray paint with his boot. "This is evidence." He then spotted Jamal's phone, which had fallen out of his pocket during the assault. He picked it up. "And this too. Don't want you calling your gangbanger friends, do we?" He looked down at Jamal, a crumpled heap of pain on the dirty ground. "This is a warning. Stay out of my part of town. Next time, it'll be more than just a broken hand." With that, Officer Slade walked away, taking the art supplies and the phone with him, leaving Jamal alone in the echoing silence of the underpass. The vibrant faces of the community heroes on the wall seemed to look down at him with sorrow. Pain was a roaring ocean in his head, but through it, a single thought surfaced: his father. He had to call his father. He cradled his shattered wrist to his chest and stumbled out of the underpass, his legs shaking. Every step sent a fresh wave of agony through him. He flagged down a city bus, the driver's eyes going wide at the sight of his obviously broken arm and pale, sweat-soaked face. The driver made a call, and minutes later, an ambulance was there. In the emergency room, the pain was a dull, constant throb, muted slightly by medication. The doctor, a kind woman with tired eyes, looked grimly at the x-ray. "This is a bad break, son. A comminuted fracture. The wrist bone is broken in multiple places. It looks like it was hit with extreme force. Like a hammer." Jamal, his voice hoarse, told the hospital staff what happened. That a police officer had assaulted him. The hospital made the mandatory call to the police department to report an officer-involved injury. The call was routed, as per protocol, to the precinct's watch commander. The name of the officer involved was requested. Jamal gave it, Officer Kurt Slade. An hour later, 2 internal affairs detectives, looking bored and cynical, came to his hospital room. They took a perfunctory statement, their questions clearly designed to find fault with Jamal's actions. "Were you trespassing? Were you verbally aggressive? Did you make any threatening moves?" Jamal, exhausted and in pain, answered truthfully. "No. No. No." He told them Slade used weighted gloves. The detectives exchanged a look of practiced disbelief. When they left, Jamal knew with a sickening certainty that nothing would come of it. Slade would be cleared. His word against theirs. He finally got access to a hospital phone to call his father. His father, Michael Carter, was at a conference in Quantico. Jamal's voice was shaky as he explained what happened: the underpass, the mural, the broken wrist, the sap gloves. On the other end of the line, Michael Carter listened, his knuckles turning white as he gripped his own phone. He was a tall, powerfully built black man whose calm demeanor was his greatest asset. He was a man who dealt in facts, in evidence, in the slow, methodical dismantling of corrupt systems. He was the lead field investigator for the Department of Justice's National Police Misconduct Task Force. His entire life was dedicated to hunting down and prosecuting cops exactly like Kurt Slade. Jamal, Michael's voice was unnervingly calm, a deep, quiet rumble that barely concealed a tectonic fury. "Where are you now?" "Which hospital?" Jamal told him. "Okay. Don't talk to any more local police. Don't say anything else. I'm handling it. I'm on my way." The line clicked dead. Michael Carter stood up, excused himself from the conference, and made a single call to his team. "Activate it," he said, his voice flat and cold. Protocol 7. Target's name is Officer Kurt Slade, Chicago PD, full federal surveillance, effective immediately. I want everything. His financials, his known associates, his service weapon logs, and any prior complaints. A team will meet me at O'Hare. We're going to war. Back at the precinct, Officer Slade was writing his report. He painted Jamal as an aggressive, non-compliant suspect who had slipped and fallen while resisting arrest, injuring his own wrist. He logged the spray paint as evidence of vandalism and booked the phone into property. He felt confident. It was his word against the punk kids. He had nothing to worry about. He had no idea that a federal ghost team was already being scrambled. He didn't know that his own car was about to be fitted with a GPS tracker, his phone records subpoenaed, and his life placed under a microscope of terrifying intensity. He thought he'd just broken a kid's hand. He didn't realize he had just declared war on the one man in the country whose entire job was to burn people like him to the ground. For the next 24 hours, Officer Slade lived in blissful ignorance. He went about his patrol, roughing up teenagers, shaking down street vendors, and generally terrorizing his beat, all under the guise of proactive policing. He'd heard from the precinct captain that Internal Affairs had logged the complaint from the mural kid, but that it was already being buried. It was business as usual. He felt untouchable. He was oblivious to the net tightening around him. He didn't see the unmarked van parked 2 blocks from his home, filled with federal agents listening to his phone calls. He didn't know the financial analyst at the DOJ was tracing the suspicious cash deposits he made every Friday. He didn't know that a forensics team was already examining his locker at the precinct, having gained silent, after-hours access with the coerced help of a terrified police captain who knew better than to obstruct a federal warrant. They found the sap gloves tucked away in a gym bag. The next afternoon, as Slade was leaving a diner after his lunch break, 2 immaculate black sedans boxed in his squad car. Before he could even process what was happening, 4 people emerged. They were not cops. They were dressed in sharp, functional suits, and they moved with the eerie, coordinated precision of a predator cat. They were Michael Carter's team. Officer Kurt Slade, the lead agent, a calm, serious woman, asked, though it wasn't a question. "Who's asking?" Slade blustered, his hand instinctively going to his weapon. "Federal agents," she said, flashing her credentials. "You're being detained for questioning in a federal investigation. Please place your hands on the vehicle." Slade was stunned into compliance. This was impossible. Federal agents? For what? The kid from the underpass? It made no sense. He was disarmed and placed in the back of one of the sedans. His world had just tilted on its axis. He wasn't taken to a local police station. He was driven to the basement of the Dirksen Federal Building, a place where the air itself seemed heavy with institutional power. He was stripped of his belongings and placed in a small, windowless room, a far cry from the dingy interrogation rooms at his own precinct. This one was clean, silent, and terrifying. He waited for hours. It was a deliberate tactic. Let him stew. Let the arrogance curdle into fear. Finally, the door opened. The man who entered was tall, powerfully built, and impeccably dressed. He was black. He carried a single file folder, which he placed on the metal table between them. He sat down and looked at Slade, his eyes calm, analytical, and utterly devoid of mercy. "Officer Slade," the man began, his voice a deep, quiet baritone. "My name is Michael Carter. I'm the lead field investigator with the Department of Justice's National Police Misconduct Task Force." Slade stared. The name Carter clicked faintly in his memory. The kid's name was Carter. Jamal Carter. The blood drained from Slade's face. It wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. "I believe you had an encounter with my son yesterday," Michael Carter continued, his voice as level as a surgeon's scalpel. He opened the file. "Let's review your report, shall we? You state that you approached Jamal because you suspected him of vandalism. You claim he became verbally aggressive and non-compliant. You claim he resisted arrest, and in the ensuing struggle, he slipped on a patch of wet ground, causing a self-inflicted wrist fracture." He looked up from the report, his gaze pinning Slade to his chair. "Is that an accurate summary, officer?" Slade swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Yes, sir. That's what happened." Michael Carter leaned forward slightly. "That's a shame. Because we have high-resolution audio from a directional microphone in a surveillance van parked a block away. It recorded every word of your encounter. There was no verbal aggression from my son. Only from you. We also have forensic evidence from the wall of the underpass showing my son's hair and skin cells, indicating you slammed his head against the concrete. And then there's this." He pulled a clear evidence bag from the folder. Inside were the SAP gloves. "Our lab has already found my son's DNA and blood on the polymer knuckles of these illegal, unregistered weapons, which we found in your personal locker. Weapons that perfectly match the comminuted fractures on my son's wrist, according to the ER doctor's report. So, tell me again, Officer Slade. How did my son break his hand?" Slade's composure shattered. He began to sweat profusely. He was trapped. Utterly and completely trapped. It was a mistake. A misjudgment. "No," Michael Carter said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "A mistake is writing the wrong address on a traffic ticket. What you did was a crime. You, a sworn officer of the law, used a weapon favored by street thugs to brutally assault a child. My child. You broke his hand, his drawing hand, because your ego couldn't handle his composure. Because you saw a young black man, and you decided he was guilty before you even opened your mouth. You are the rot that I have dedicated my life to cutting out of law enforcement." He stood up, towering over the broken man. "This isn't just about my son anymore, Slade. This is about every person you have ever bullied. Every minority you've ever harassed. Every complaint that was buried by your department. We have it all. We have the financials showing your shakedowns. We have witness statements about your history of violence. We have you on video bragging to your partner about how you handled my son." He walked to the door. "You are being charged with multiple federal crimes, including deprivation of rights under color of law, assault with a dangerous weapon, and falsifying a police report. Given your history, the U.S. Attorney is recommending no bail. You will not see the outside of a federal facility for a very, very long time. Your precinct is also under a full pattern and practice investigation, starting today. Your captain and your union rep can't save you. You are, for all intents and purposes, mine." He opened the door, where 2 U.S. Marshals were waiting. "He's all yours, gentlemen," Michael said. As Slade was led away, a whimpering, pathetic shell of his former self, Michael Carter allowed a single, deep breath. The fury was still there, a hot coal in his chest, but it was now banked by the cold satisfaction of justice. Weeks later, Jamal sat in his father's study, his right arm in a high-tech cast designed to accelerate bone healing. His father was showing him preliminary designs for a new citywide youth arts initiative funded by a massive settlement from the city, which had been desperate to avoid further federal action against their police department. "They want you to be a consultant," Michael said, a rare, proud smile on his face. "To help design the programs. To make sure more kids have a chance to turn ugly spaces into beautiful ones." Jamal looked at his cast, then at the designs. "My hand," he started, his voice quiet. "The doctors say you'll make a full recovery," Michael said gently. "It will take time. But your strength, it isn't just in your hand, Jamal. It's in your spirit. The same spirit that kept you calm and dignified in the face of that monster. That's the spirit that creates art. And no thug in a uniform can ever break that." Jamal looked at his father, the federal investigator, the man who hunted monsters. But right now, he was just his dad. "Thanks, Dad." Michael put an arm around his son. "Always." Outside, the city hummed on. But in one precinct, a deep clean was underway. And in one federal prison, a former police officer named Kurt Slade was beginning a long, long time to think about the day he decided to bully a young artist, a concrete saint, and in doing so, brought the full and terrible weight of a father's law down upon his own head.